criminal justice, healing, education. Let's awaken the people. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are currently watching. If you guys don't know by now, I am the founder, Holly Sisa, and this is Morning Mimosas, where we value human life, criminal justice, healing, and educating for the Black and minority communities with a note that we love all people. Before we get the episode started today, you guys see that I'm in a different scene, but that's okay. I'm in an amazing scene. So it's just a little different, but I'm loving it. Let's get started with, of course, what our housekeeping tools. So here is a message from three of our beautiful partners.
Sanjanette Sayers here from Imuna Soaps and Essentials. Just wanted to send out a reminder for all of you Morning Mimosa community members. If you go to my website and use promo code MM23, you will get a percentage off of your entire order. And my website is www.emunahsoaps.com. God bless.
Hey y'all, it's Auntie Harley, CEO, founder, and owner, lots of hats, of Ganelle's Crafts. Speaking of hats, our signature product, the Flower Crown, can be found right at our Instagram page, Ganelle's Crafts. But that's not even why we're here. I'm here today, number one, to give a shameless plug for these do-rags, because y'all been eating these up, okay? And number two, I'm giving another shameless plug. If you mention the amazing podcast, Morning Mimosas, shout out to the beautiful host, Holly, at your checkout, you get $10 off your full order. And we make some of everything, baby, not just do-rags and hats. So definitely come see us over at Ganelle's Crafts. If we haven't made it already, if you send us an idea, we could probably make it for you. We adore you. We love you. From our family to yours, get you something handmade.
I just want to thank all of the lovely partners that Morning Mimosas partners with. You guys are all amazing. Muna Soaps, Ganelle Crafts, and Michelle Simmons Counseling. So if you are in the Denver area, please utilize those mental health services. I have to go ahead and say that now because it is Mental Health Awareness Month. So if you are in the Denver area, please utilize Michelle Simmons services. Now, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the episode. But before I bring on this amazing person, let's give her a proper morning mimosas welcome. Don't you guys think we should do that? Let's do it. Good morning, Miss Chapman. I am so happy to find guys. I've been trying to get her on the show for a while. So the fact that I got her today on this beautiful Saturday, May 11th, super duper honored. Miss Chapman, how are you today?
Good morning, Holly. I'm doing so good. I'm so excited to be here with you. I've enjoyed the time that we spent, just like we said, building our relationship and just getting to know you. So I'm extremely excited to be here and have this conversation with you all on the Morning Mimosas podcast.
Absolutely amazing, guys. This lady is doing wonderful things, and she's in California. But what she's doing is being spread across the nation. So I just want to go ahead and let's get into this episode. But before we do that, we care about the people that come on our show. So let's make sure that Miss Chapman introduces who she is and what she does first before we get into the school to prison pipeline discussion. Miss Chapman, let's talk about you first because we care about you first. How are you? What do you do? And then we get into it.
Well, I am blessed and highly favored. But what I do is I am the CEO and lead consultant of Elementary Education Evolved, which is an educational consulting company on a mission to close the academic achievement gaps for minority students as well as retain teachers. That's any teacher from elementary to middle and high school, and we do that through effective professional development training as well as instructional coaching programs. And I like to describe myself as an empathetic problem solver who is driven by both passion and purpose. So that's just a little bit about me and what I do.
That is absolutely beautiful, guys. We have similar missions, just going about it two different ways. I absolutely love it. So you guys know, or for those of you that don't know, please tell the viewers what school to prison pipeline is, because a lot of people do not know what that is.
Right. So the school to prison pipeline is pretty much when younger children as early as pre-K get targeted and get minor infractions for their behaviors at school. So when I say minor, I mean insubordination, just being defiant or refusing to take off a hat, refusing to complete an assignment, refusing to uphold uniform policies. When they refuse to do so, instead of them getting counseling or just a warning or some sort like that, they get the most extreme and harshest punishments, such as expulsion, or out of school suspension. And when they do that, of course they're out of school without receiving instructional guidance, and it puts them on track to be more public, be more visible to police officers, and oftentimes those harsh and punishments get led to arrest. And so when they get arrested, they get into the juvenile justice system, which puts them on the track to federal and state prisons. So it all starts, like I said, as early as pre-K, and it's really dealing with how teachers and school leaders choose to handle behavior issues, primarily with Black students.
Yeah, that all that is absolutely insane. Because I had a meeting last. I think I told you this. I had a meeting last week with DPS. That's a district here at Denver Public Schools, and we were
Mhm.
discussing the same thing. And my next question, which is what I'm getting to, some of the schools wanted to keep SROs, and for those of you guys that don't know what an SRO is, it's a school resource officer. Some people want to keep them, and I'm talking about the people, I mean the students. Some students in the district wanted to keep the SROs in the school, others do not, because an increase of SROs are leading to a lot of minority students being arrested at school for such small infractions. So my next question to you would be, what is your opinion on having SROs in middle schools and high schools?
Yeah. While I believe and I understand the importance of why they were initially put there, because this dates back to happened in the 90s with the Columbine school shooting. So this is where the whole idea is that SROs or school resource officers are needed. It was there to prevent mass shootings happening again. However, it turned into this cycle of simply targeting not just Black students, although those are the demographic of students that are impacted the most, but as well as students with disabilities, and students that come from poor or more, less fortunate backgrounds. So they are become the target of SRO interactions, just because when teachers choose not to deal with the behavior, it's just better to say, oh, well, let this SRO handle it. And of course, oftentimes, as we've seen in the media, police officers are not trained, and they don't have the empathy or the compassion and the level to deal with these children on the level in which they need to be dealt with. They're treating them as if they are legit criminals. I don't
Okay.
know, you've seen videos of SRO officers pulling students, I mean, female students out of chairs,
Yes. Yep.
going as far as arresting a 5-year-old and walking them
Yep.
out of campus.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
I believe if they are not, if they are to remain in the school systems, it should be for the sole purpose of safety only. I do not feel that they should be dealing with behaviors. I do not feel that arrest should be made at all. Because then that goes into what we're discussing, the school to prison pipeline, and it defeats the purpose of why they were initially put there, and it breaks the trust that parents have with the school systems. So it's a cycle of harm and just wrongdoing that is counterproductive to the advancement of our Black and brown students within our educational systems.
I completely agree, Miss Chapman. I remember when I saw that story about that. I think it was either a 5 or that 6-year-old that was arrested by an SRO.
Right.
My question, my question there was first and foremost, a 5 and a 6-year-old. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't even make
Right.
sense.
Right.
Second off, why are you detaining a child without the parents, without the
Yes.
parents' knowledge? That's another issue I'm having. And then the
Mm-hmm.
child's age creates a
Mm-hmm.
problem too. Like,
Oh,
what are you
absolutely.
arresting a five? What are you arresting a 5 and a 6-year-old for? What did they do? Try to take your baton? Like,
Right.
I'm just being serious. Like,
Right.
I'm not necessarily understanding. And then, and then of course, like what is that? The racial disproportion too. Just
Yeah.
it's mostly minority children.
Right.
It's it's a very disheartening thing because, like you
Oh
said,
yeah.
we need the SROs in the schools, but they're not benefiting anything. I was talking to another person that I did the meeting with last week, and they were mentioning that there was a school shooting somewhere, and the SRO didn't do a damn thing except run.
Well, that's similar to what happened in what was that, in Texas? When when there was the shooting and the SROs were outside waiting for other security and personnel to arrive before they went in and did anything. So again, it goes back to the training. What is your training? What is the training that you're receiving? What is the outcome of that training? And again, let's stay focused on what is your initial purpose and reasoning for being there. It's safety. So they should only be focusing on safety, not disruptive students. Now, I mean, it does depending on the level of disruption. Now
Right.
we'll enter that caveat. If the disruption of instruction is volatile and is creating a safety hazard due to like someone bringing in a gun or a knife or something like that, then yes, that's when it's necessary. But if not, then they shouldn't have anything to do with what's going on in these classrooms. Point blank, period. And just like you stated, Black children in preschool are 3.6 times more likely to get in school or out of school suspension at the rate of white children. 3.6 times more.
Miss Chapman, can you repeat the grade that you just said? What age children is that?
Preschool.
What grade is that?
That's 3 and 4 years old. And they're 3.6 times more likely to get an out of school suspension as compared to their white counterparts for the same behaviors.
So you and I discussed this. I have a 3-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. I'm just a little bit confused on why. I'm just like I'm flabbergasted, to be honest. Why would they like expel or like do anything like that of children who are just barely getting into school? Like I'm just a little. I need you to explain that to me. I'm just a little confused by that.
Holly, I wish I could explain that. I'm with you. I'm flabbergasted as well because these again, they are children. Their minds are simply just beginning to develop and shape. So as opposed to having them detained and arrested and walking them out in handcuffs or just giving them out of school suspension, where is the counseling? Where is the working with the parents and collaborating with them to create a plan to help this child be successful? Because again, the difference in white communities and black communities, as we all know, black communities typically deal with more trauma, more poverty, and just
Right.
an overall lack of access and lack of resources. So, because we know these things are true and evident, we have to move as if we know these things are true and evident. We have to create
Right.
systems and implement strategies to put in place to support these students that come from these backgrounds so that we are not contributing to this school to prison pipeline, to show that we are actually trying to develop the whole child, not just a child that comes to us without any issues, because all children have issues. That's the
Okay.
that's the root of the matter. But it's just how we're selective in our
Yeah.
leadership and in our mindset with who we feel is deserving of a second chance, or who we feel is deserving of receiving these counseling and emotional support benefits, as opposed to just throwing away the child. And media plays a huge part in perpetuating that idea and creating this cycle, this continuation of this cycle. And so until we deal with our mindsets, until we deal with the facts of the truths of the matter, of what we know to be true about society, and actually putting things in place to combat that, we're going to continue to deal with this.
Unfortunately, that's true.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
I
and
could
that's
go on there. Like, we have more police officers in our schools than we do school counselors, than we do psychologists, than we do social workers. So just to
and
give
that's
you
not
some
alone.
just
Wow.
to give you
Wow.
some stats, 1.7 million students are in schools with police but no counselors.
What?
1.7. 3 million students are in school with police but no nurses. 6 million students are in school with police but no psychologists. 10 million students are in school with police but no school social workers. So Holly, you tell me, what do you think the issue is? Where's our funding going?
Yeah, I definitely see where this is going. So what, from what I'm gathering, um, they they're putting more money into law enforcement versus
Mm,
putting more resources into health, mental
mm,
health,
mhm.
and things that are actually necessary for the growth of children. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
Okay.
can we say we're really valuing education? Can we say we are really creating equitable circumstances that will lead to equitable outcomes if we're not literally putting our money where our mouth is? So everybody's talking, right? But we're not putting our money where our mouth is. It just sounds good. It's a good sound bite. We appear to be trying to solve a problem when in fact our school budgets say the exact opposite. So if you want to know how
Really?
this school to prison pipeline continues, our school districts are funding it. Literally.
They don't want to say that. They want to say that we're working on a solution. We're working to make things better. That's what they like to say. It's what is that? Um, cover your own ass.
Yeah. CYA.
That's just basically
Hmm.
what they're trying. That's basically what
Yeah.
they're doing. It's absolutely ridiculous. And another thing that frustrates me, because now I'm now speaking from a mother who's now frustrated. I've been frustrated. Why is it? I mean, I feel like I know the answer to this, so I maybe shouldn't ask it. But
Go ahead.
why do they spend so much time pretending like they care when they don't? Like, why fake it to make it seem like, oh, we're actually working on, addressing this issue, of equality and, retaining teachers and making sure everything is cool, because that's the next part of the conversation is us promoting equality and retaining teachers. Why are they lying instead of just being honest? Like, hey, we have these teachers, we have these police officers here because the prisons make us money.
You know, for some, I really believe that it's just, and I know you're probably like, how can they not see it? But I really believe it's a lack of, like, it's just ignorance, that they just don't really understand how their actions are contributing to this endless cycle. Um, I want to believe that they have good and pure intentions, or at least they may start off as good and pure intentions. But once that ball gets rolling and these teachers are calling and saying they need help and they need backup, all of those good and pure intentions go out of the door, because the most easily and accessible solution, especially if you have the presence of an SRO officer, is just to let them deal with it. So I think it comes down to, beginning with pure intentions, but not following through on it, a lack of ignorance as to just understanding how they're actually contributing to this endless cycle, and just being lazy by not wanting to deal with these behaviors, and also not funding or putting the right investment into teacher preparation. Because if we spent more of our money, again, going back to training, but training for teachers on classroom management, understanding the background of diverse students, building bridges with those of diverse students, again, going back to like culturally relevant practices and culturally responsive practices, we have to excuse me, we have to equip teachers with these tools so that their first response is not to go to an SRO officer. Their first response is not to just have this notion of, well, this is already how I view you, so this is just what I'm going to do. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, again, I blame the media and biases
Yeah.
and stereotypes and all of those things, because when we look at Black children, we automatically just associate them with the worst of the worst and the negative stereotypes. And so the smallest behaviors, such as defiance, just get criminalized, as opposed to just saying, well, maybe this child is being defiant because they don't understand what it is I'm teaching. Maybe this child needs a psychologist to assess them to see if there is a learning disability, or if
Right.
there is trauma that's stemming from their home life that is now filtering into our classroom and is preventing this child from learning or giving their full attention. And I also think, I'm going a little sideways sometimes, because I thought to myself, why are Black children defiant? Why? Because the majority of their infractions are minor. Those are their infractions. It's
Right.
insubordination. White
Insubordination.
children, when they get expelled or get out of school suspension, is for vandalism or for drug usage. So they have much more. They do get expelled for those harsher consequences, whereas Black students and students with disabilities get suspended and expelled for defiance. But my question was, why are Black children more defiant? And I think it goes back, again, these are just my beliefs. I believe it goes back to slavery. Um, Having an overseer, constantly telling you what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And so when we look into our classrooms where the majority of our teachers are white teachers, and then you're working with Black students, and these teachers don't understand them, don't want to understand them, or don't fully understand where they come from, and you're telling them what to do, how to do it, when to do it, it creates this reaction of, I'm not listening to you. I'm not your slave. And so I think that can be why
Ooh,
that can be
ooh,
why there's that defiance, which goes back to the teachers. How are you communicating with these students? Are you doing it in an overseer type of manner? Or are
right,
you doing it from a loving place?
right.
But considering the fact that there's this school to prison pipeline, I have to go with the latter. I mean, the greater. I don't believe that is coming from a loving place. And that's where we have to change our approach.
I completely agree. Whew, when I say that this is, I mean, are we surprised by this? No, right? Obviously, we've been going through this since, well, what, the last 400 years, 400 plus years. So
Right. Right.
it's just absolutely insane. But that's why we love people like you, excuse me, who are trying to make a difference in that aspect. So keep doing what you're doing because you are making an impact. And we need people like you to continue on this progression to make sure that there is true equality
Yeah.
in all aspects. We're actually going to switch to that equality. Another part of this topic is promoting equality and retaining teachers. In the district that I live in, we've noticed that teachers, I mean, we have teachers, but there's not a lot of them, right? My kids are in ECE, and sometimes their teacher has to substitute for another class because that class might not have a teacher. And I just want to hear what your opinion is on, or what you think the solution should be for promoting equality and making sure that we are retaining not just teachers, but people who actually give a damn about teaching. Because, some of these teachers are just there just because, I don't know if it's for a paycheck or just if it's like a power thing, but what is your what is your stance on that?
Well, I believe the lack of teachers has a lot to do with the pay that teachers receive. As we all know, teachers do not get paid nearly what they are worth. And so, with that, there's not a lot of attraction around those in college, wanting to go into education. And those that are in education who got into it to make a difference and, wanted to be a part of the change now realize that in the world of education, there's so many politics and so many things that tie your hands as to what you're able to do and not able to do, even as far as like what you're able to teach and not able to teach, how you teach. A lot of school districts now are pushing scripted curriculum, taking away the creativity and autonomy of teachers. So it's like, why do I want to keep coming back when I'm essentially told to be a robot? I'm essentially being told that I can't create my own lessons and I can't run my classroom how I see fit. And so, because of those issues, it is becoming much more difficult to retain teachers. So, the solution to that, of course, would be to increase their pay. I mean, we have hundreds and thousands of millions of dollars to pay SRO officers. So surely we have the funds somewhere, but they're just not going to where they need to go. So to first tackle that issue in order to retain teachers, we have to increase their pay. We also have to, again, equip them with the tools that are necessary and going to give them that success that they know they can succeed in so that they want to stay in the classroom. I don't know anybody that's going to stay in the field that they're not successful in. So if you see, for example, year after year, this teacher's test scores are not showing progression within their reading instruction, then that's a red flag and a big indicator that this teacher needs training on reading strategies so that they can improve their practices to close gaps and get student academic progress. And so it all goes back to paying attention to data, listening to what our teachers are telling you they need help with, and sometimes just even being able to identify what they need help with yourself, because sometimes teachers don't know what they need help with. They don't know what they don't know. And so that's why we pay these leaders the big bucks to identify the gaps and to create solutions for them. So it goes back to training so that they can practice those equitable practices and implement equality, bringing in culturally relevant textbooks, culturally relevant lessons to reach and engage all students so that they can see success. Once they see success and they see that they are good at educating students, they will be more inclined to remain in the classroom. So we have all of these different aspects and components as to why teachers are leaving, but there are clear solutions. I feel like it just goes back to funding. Where are we putting our money? Where you're putting your money is where you're going to get the return on that investment. So we're seeing where our investment is going. We're funding something outside of our educational organizations as opposed to keeping it within our educational organizations. So training your teachers, hiring school psychologists, making sure you have enough school counselors, making sure you have nurses, making sure you have partnerships within your community that are able to give families access to these resources so that they don't have to pay for somebody to tell them what's going on with their child or to give them recommendations on how to fix it. And so I believe once we really focus on what's going on in our schools and just putting those resources in place, we can then create more equitable outcomes for everybody. I hope that
I
answered
absolutely
your
love that.
question.
It sure did. But I'm gonna add something to that. So I also think when it comes to equity as well,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think that having similar curriculum is also a part of that equity. What I've learned is, especially here, certain districts depend on, like you said, money, right? If you have the money, you have a specific curriculum because you're able
Mm-hmm.
to afford the books, the tablets, the computers, and all that other stuff. What about the poorer neighborhoods? They don't get that same education. They don't get that same curriculum. And that's the thing that also bothers me when it comes to equity and equality in these schools. It's ridiculous that, and this is just an example. People don't come for me unless I send for you. Um, the Beverly Hills children, probably get, you know, I'm trying to think of the specific word I want to use. They probably get like okay, I'll use eggs as an example. They probably get like a grade A education versus, you know, and it's funny I'm using California. I'm not even there. Compton. I'm just why I'm doing this. But not all of Compton is poor. I just want to point that out
Yeah.
because there's a lot of stereotypes behind that. But maybe like the poorer parts of Compton, maybe they have three textbooks to share among a class of 30.
Mm-hmm.
Even with technology advancing, like that really does bother me. Even with technology advancing, kids still don't have textbooks. They lack computers. And that's another thing too. Can we talk about how they do budgets for schools? I,
Sure.
I, I learned a little bit about my district's budget, and I'm like, $1.4 billion is their annual. What are they doing with all that money when they're budgeting? I'm just so confused.
It's a great question. I believe the majority of the budget goes to their salaries. And when I say their salaries, I don't mean teachers. I mean
Okay. The higher ups.
superintendents, I mean principals, I mean those that work on the district level. The money is going into their pockets. It's not going into fixing school environments. Um, some of it is technology. Some of it is professional development training. However, the training that they're doing, again, is not equitable because you're doing a one size fits all training for your entire district when every teacher in your district is not on the same level and does not need this one size fits all training. And so you have teachers that still have needs that are not getting met. So they're putting the funding into training, but the training isn't effective, nor is it producing the outcomes that they wanted to. So we just have to get really strategic. Again, going back to our data, what is our data informing us about? What do we need to improve? And sometimes that just means taking a cut from your own paycheck sometimes, yeah, I'll leave it there. I want
I'm
to
about to
say, and
say,
that's another thing. They spend a lot of money on curriculum. I've had the pleasure of living in a few states. I'm a military spouse, and so I have lived in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, New York. Now I'm here in California, and regardless of where I am, the trend is the same. That most
yeah.
districts rotate curriculums on a yearly or bi-yearly basis. Um, and so if you're constantly changing curriculums, of course, you're not giving teachers a chance to master that curriculum or get used to it. And so that's why they always feel like they can never catch the grounding because things are always changing. And so if we stop investing in so much curriculum, because I'm going to say this, sometimes education can be very trendy. We in education we tend to hop on a bandwagon, so to speak. This curriculum comes out, oh, let's hop on that. Balanced literacy was a thing. Now it's science of reading. So just depending on what's popular or what's trendy or what's the newest curriculum, that district will jump on board and they will invest their money into that as opposed to sticking with the curriculum that was working. And they say, well, it wasn't working. How do you know it wasn't working if you only used it for 1 or 2 years? Your teachers are still getting comfortable with it. They still require training around it. And so, just like students need time to sit with the material, they have to have multiple practices or at bats at it. The same is true for adults. They have to sit with that curriculum. They have to have multiple practices, multiple at bats with it in order to improve their practices. But they can't do that if we're constantly switching curriculum. And so I just brought that up because that is where a lot of the funding from districts tend to go to, from buying new curriculum. And so it's just taking a microscope and really looking at what are we spending our money on and why.
I can't wait. I can't wait to look into stuff like that, especially as a detective. Um,
Yeah.
because right when you said that they spend money on curriculum, I'm like, how? Um, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Okay, so I have somebody who is in the comments talking about stuff that has nothing to do with the episode. So we will disregard the person who is commenting. I need people to
Okay.
be mature. This is a show of maturity. So please leave your comments to yourself. I will be blocking this person. You and I will chat about this afterwards. But yeah, it's a lady who's mad at me about her baby daddy, and now she's in the comments talking. So my morning
Yeah,
roasted
you
viewers,
ignore
please,
her.
yeah, please disregard this woman. Um, and she keeps commenting. Let me go ahead and block her really quick because We don't need that level of unprofessionalism. If you have an issue with your kid's father, please deal with that at your own time. Morning Mimosas is a professional show. I don't have time for your nonsense, okay? I don't even know who you really are. So be angry at yourself. Anyways, back to the episode at hand. I need to figure out a way to block this young lady. Um, we are talking about um, equality and making sure that students have um, an equal education, right? Um, I I don't know. I don't know if it's happening where you are in California. With me and my children, I've noticed that when I was in school, and this goes back to like the equality thing. When I was in school, and maybe when you were in school, we went to school every day, seemed like, you know? It just seems like these kids nowadays, especially after the pandemic, they're in school lesser and lesser and lesser. So I'm like, while we're focusing on trying to equate the curriculum,
Mm-hmm.
um, how can we do that if the kids are not in school every day?
You know, huh. I think it's time that we reimagine education. Parents are obviously a big contributing factor to the chronic absenteeism, right? And so I believe that parents, and I'm saying this, I believe this just based off of conversations that I've had with parents, comments and things of that nature that I've seen on social media. That I believe parents they are no longer buying what the public school system is putting out, what they're selling. They're not hearing it. They're not seeing the connection to how the Pythagorean theorem helps us in real life. They're not seeing the connection to calculus and algebra and how it helps us, or all these things. So I think parents are like, yeah, they want something more, something that's going to really prepare their children to live in today's society. I've heard several parents address or mention that they want their children to be learning about financial literacy, life skills, cooking, mechanics, like STEM, uh, things that are actually, like I said, are going to help them be a productive citizen in today's society. And unfortunately, some of our curriculum is just not up to date with that. Not only that, our teachers struggle to form positive relationships with parents. And when we struggle to form these positive relationships with parents, and our children are mistreated or singled out, or disciplined at a higher rate, because again, going back to the teacher's mindset, how they're thinking or perceiving this child, parents are, again, well, you already don't like my child. They have this preconceived notion that off the bat, if you are a white teacher, you're going to give my black or brown child a more difficult time. You're not going to fully educate or equip them the way that you should. And so there's this automatic mistrust with teachers, almost like the same mistrust that Black communities have with police officers. So it goes into that as well. Talking about equity, there's data that support that when Black students are matched with Black teachers, their suspension rates are much lower. Their expulsion rates are much lower. And of course, that could be for a variety of reasons, but they're just not given minor infractions at the rate that they are given when they are with white teachers. So I got lost, but but equity.
It's
So
okay.
so so yeah, those things have to be looked at, and we have to consider how we are imagining education. Are we really growing with the times, just like other industries have, like even considering a regular school day? Do students still need to be in school for 8 hours a day? Do teachers need to be in the building for those 8 hours? Can teachers do shifts? Can they do morning shifts? Does all school personnel have to be there for the entire day? If their job is done, let them go home. That would decrease burnout rates, which would which would increase. It would decrease burnout rates, which would increase retention. So I think the whole educational system has to be reimagined, and it's time for change. COVID was definitely that alarm clock to wake us up to say this is not working. So I say all that to say I believe those are the reasons why children are not coming to school anymore. They're just not interested. Doesn't make it right, but parents are woke. They see the agenda, and they're just not having it.
Wow, wow, wow. Oh, God. We had one hell
It's
of a
a
chat today.
crisis.
Like we have one hell this is one hell of a chat. And a part two is definitely on the horizon because this is an ongoing issue. So we will definitely have a part two to this. Guys,
Yes,
Miss Chapman graced Morning Mimosas today. You guys, this episode was absolutely invigorating. I learned a lot from her, and I hope that you guys were able to take away some great information. If you weren't, initially educated in school to prison pipeline, you guys should be now after listening to this. But educate yourself more because this is an ongoing issue. So, Ms. Chapman,
for sure.
thank you so much for gracing Morning Mimosas. You will definitely be back because you are that woman. Okay, you guys.
Thank you so much, Holly.
Absolutely. I need you to stay backstage with me for a second. But as you guys know, this is Morning Mimosas, where we value human life, criminal justice, healing, and education. Because that girl in the comments needs healing for the Black and minority communities. We'll see you guys soon.